Hey guys, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We are here at Jack Trice Stadium bringing you our 2019 Iowa State football predictions. And last year, Iowa State got off to a rough start. Their first game of the season was canceled, and they started the season off 1-3. But this team reminded me a lot of Northwestern last year. After that 1-3 start, they won 7 of their last 8 games and made an appearance in the Alamo Bowl before falling to the hands of Mike Leach and Washington State. But Iowa State this year, led under Matt Campbell, and his 4th season with the Cyclones will be very, very dangerous. And you've heard me say over and over, I believe this team could be the 3rd best team, if not better, in the Big 12, behind just Oklahoma and Texas. They returned Brock Purdy at quarterback, and even though they did lose David Montgomery and Hakeem Butler at wide receiver, they do return Deshaunte Jones and LaMichael Petway, the transfer from Arkansas. This Iowa State team is dangerous in the Big 12 in 2019. We had them opening up the season against Northern Iowa with a W there, no worries at all. And then they get a bye week in week 2. And I'm not a huge fan of early bye weeks, but this will greatly benefit the Cyclones as they get that bye week before their rivalry game here against Iowa. And, last year Iowa State fell to the Hawkeyes by 10 points. Last time here in Ames, they fell to the Hawkeyes by 3, 44-41 in overtime. So they really want this win against the Cyclones. They've lost 4 straight. And I think they snapped that 4-game losing streak, or 4-game losing to the Hawkeyes, and the Cyclones get the win over their rival in Iowa. This is an Iowa team that does return Nathan Stanley, does return a decent defense led by A.J. Epinesa on that defensive line, but nonetheless, at home, fresh off a week of rest, especially with this dynamic offense, the Cyclones get the win. And they are 3-0 because we have them beating Louisiana Monroe as well. Then they kick off Big 12 play on the road against Baylor. And to me, this is a major trap game for them. Baylor, under Matt Rule, is continuing to improve every single year. Went 1-11 in year 1. Won 7 games last year, and that thrilling win over Vanderbilt in their bowl game. And now this year, return 8 starters offensively and 7 defensively, including Charlie Brewer at quarterback. One of the best and one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the entire Big 12. I like this Baylor team a lot. I expect them to win more than 6 games in the regular season, and I think one of those wins in the regular season will come against Iowa State. It's on the road. This is an experienced Baylor team, a potent Baylor offense, and while Iowa State does return 8 starters defensively, I do not think they're going to be able to go on the road and get the job done. It's going to be close, but Iowa State falls for their first loss to the Baylor Bears. They return home to face off against TCU. Last year, one of those opening 3 losses in their first 4 games came to TCU 17-14, so they nearly beat the Horned Frogs on the road last year. This year, TCU has a major question at quarterback. No one knows who it's going to be. It could very well be Alex Delton, the transfer quarterback from Kansas State, or it could be somebody else. But what we do know is that this is going to be a bounce-back year for TCU and Gary Patterson. No doubt in my mind. They will have a potent rushing attack and a defense that will greatly improve in 2019, even though they were fairly solid in 2018. Last year, 14 points were only scored for the Cyclones against the Horned Frogs. Expect a lot more, especially coming off a loss here at Baylor, especially with this game being played at Jack Trice Stadium. Iowa State beats TCU, and they are 4-1 going into the 2nd week of October. And if you look at this, they're very lucky. Their next 2 games, on October 12th and on October 19th, are against West Virginia and Texas Tech. And while unfortunately both of those games are on the road, they are both against teams that have brand new head coaches. And we'll start with West Virginia bringing in Neil Brown from Troy. West Virginia was 1 play away, or 1 game away, I should say, from making the Big 12 championship last year had they beaten Oklahoma in that thriller. But now they lose Will Greer. Now they lose David Sills. They've lost tons of pieces defensively, and they've lost even more through the transfer portal. So West Virginia is certainly not going to be the team that we saw last year that almost made the Big 12 championship game. But Neil Brown is the real deal. And I think he will get the Mountaineers to prominence, much like they were under Dana Holgorsen, much like they were last year in 2018. It's not going to be this year, though. And even though it is on the road, I think Iowa State gets a huge win over the Mountaineers, a team that I think will struggle in 2019. And keep in mind, last year, they beat West Virginia here at Jack Trice Stadium 30-14 when the Mountaineers were the number 6 team in the nation. They get a 2nd straight win over the Mountaineers, going on the road to Texas Tech, who, like West Virginia, will be led by a brand new head coach, this time in Matt Wells, coming over from Utah State to take over as head coach for the Red Raiders. This is another potential trap game here for the Cyclones, as Texas Tech probably won't go through many or much of a rebuild under Matt Wells. They still have a great quarterback in Alan Bowman. I have a lot of faith in their offense, period. It's the defense that's got to improve. And Matt Wells' defense, wherever he has been, usually thrive. question is going to be, will it thrive in year one? I don't think it does, at least in this game. Expect this game to be close. It was just a 9-point victory for Iowa State last year. With it being on the road, it does scare me a little bit, but they do get the win over the Red Raiders. And what a phenomenal start for the Cyclones. Once again, only one loss to Baylor, and that game certainly winnable for them. They face off against Oklahoma State to close out the month of October. And last year against Oklahoma State, Iowa State went on the road, upset them 48-42. But the big takeaway from that game was it was Brock Purdy's kind of emergence. It was his coming out game. He kind of got put in that game, wasn't supposed to stay for very long, ended up having over 5 touchdowns in that game, leading the Cyclones to victory, and after that, he won the job. He was the right man for the job after that. Expect another big game out of him as Oklahoma State has questions themselves. Spencer Sanders at quarterback or Drew Brown at quarterback, the transfer from Hawaii. There's a lot of questions surrounding the Cowboys, even though they finished last year strong, even though they have Mike Gundy, a guy that you never want to underestimate. I think with this game at home, Iowa State gets another win. And looking at this now, they already have 7 wins, 7-1 going into the month of November. You're not just talking about Iowa State being a Big 12 title contender, you're talking about them being a playoff contender at 7-1 with just 4 games remaining. But if you look at the schedule, in the month of November, they do get this big-time bye week going into the game against Oklahoma, but they face the top 2 teams in the Big 12 back-to-back, at Oklahoma and Texas. And then a trap game here at the end against Kansas State, a game that has been decided by 1 possession the past 5 years. We'll start with this game against Oklahoma. Iowa State very lucky to get a bye week before that game, before traveling to Norman. And the last time they were here, 2 years ago, this is where Iowa State kind of made their emergence, kind of showed that they were back and that they were legit, upsetting the Sooners on the road. It was a phenomenal game and one of the biggest upsets of 2017. I do not think that's going to be the case in 2019. This game is so far long enough in the season that Oklahoma is going to work out any issues that they have. The last time they beat Oklahoma, not to take anything away from them, that victory, but that was still fairly early on in the season, I believe in the first week of October. The Sooners get Jalen Hurts in at quarterback. We've seen what Lincoln Riley has done with transfer quarterbacks with Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, and with 8 starters returning defensively, I think Oklahoma takes care of business here. Should be a close one, kind of like it was last year here in Ames, a 10-point victory for the Sooners. But in the end, Oklahoma gets the best of Iowa State for the 2nd straight year, and Iowa State takes their 2nd loss of the season. 2 of their final 3 games, though, are at home, and one of them is against Texas. And this is going to be the signature win for Matt Campbell and the Cyclones. They will upset the Texas Longhorns right here at Jack Trice Stadium. I love this Texas team. Tom Herman doing a phenomenal job with them. Over 10 wins last year. Upset Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Went to the Big 12 championship. Beat Oklahoma in the regular season. They have a lot of talent this year. And we'll certainly know if Texas is still the real deal if they can beat LSU in week 2 in Austin. But this game is at Ames. I've said over and over again, I think it's one of the toughest places to play in the Big 12. If you go back and look at that history, this is where dreams come to die if you're a college football team. Texas's dreams of maybe making the college football playoff, assuming they are a 1-loss team, will die here in Ames. Iowa State gets a huge upset over Sam Ehlinger and this potent Texas offense, but the defense will be their downfall. Brock Purdy and these wide receivers exploit enough weaknesses and they get the win. I give them another win here against Kansas. And you don't want to give anybody a surefire victory over Kansas. It's not a guarantee anymore. Now that the Jayhawks will be led by Les Miles. Of course, we all know that name. The Mad Hatter, the former LSU head coach. Kansas will get to the point where they can be a bowl contender and where they will be a team that people should be scared of in the Big 12. I just don't think it's going to happen in 2019. Some people think Kansas could be a bowl team this year, maybe win 5 games at the least. I don't think that's going to be the case. It will be a major rebuilding year for Les Miles to get his pieces in place, and while they will be scary, while they have that upset factor, that chance of doing so, they're not going to be able to come in here to Ames and do that. Iowa State sitting pretty at 9-2. And coming into the final game of the season on the road against Kansas State, this is the trap game I was talking about, and this will be the trap game that Iowa State will lose. I mentioned that the past 5 meetings between these schools has been decided by 1 possession. Iowa State, prior to last year's victory, had lost 10 straight to the Wildcats, so they snapped that losing streak. They won't go on another 10-game losing streak, but the Wildcats will get the best of them. Chris Kleiman comes in from the FCS North Dakota State to take over as head coach, and Skylar Thompson, I believe, is the quarterback for his system. I think he will thrive in year 1. Kansas State, kind of like Texas Tech, will not go through a major rebuilding year with Chris Kleiman. 8 returning starters defensively, a veteran quarterback. I think Kansas State, with this game being at home for them, gets the win over the Cyclones in the final week of the season. A game that has been decided by, just like I said, 1 possession and has been thrillers over the past few years. The Cyclones drop their final game to the Wildcats, but finished the season 9-3. And to put some things into perspective, between 2014 and 2016, Iowa State won a combined 8 games. In 2017 and 2018, they won 8 games each. In 2019, they will win 9 games. So the job that Matt Campbell is doing here in Ames, the job that he has already done with the Cyclones, cannot be underestimated, cannot be overshadowed. He continues to build the Cyclones program up. In 2019, they are absolutely Big 12 title contenders. And if they pull off an upset, or whether it's against Baylor, whether it's against Kansas State, and certainly if it's against Oklahoma, you can be talking about Iowa State as Big 12 title contenders and also a college football playoff dark horse. Big things are ahead for you guys and the Cyclones fans. So guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube, but go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert, and go check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for our newsletter and sign up for our expert picks. For just $30, you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks, including the postseason. I can promise you that is a deal you do not want to pass up. So join our team, sign up today only at thegridironexpert.com. And guys, as always, thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.